What you gonna do, brother? Oh, yeah! Woo! What? If you smell what the rock... You got the wrong guy. I'm the dude, man.
Welcome to another edition of Around the Turnbuckle. My name's the Big Alboski. His name right there is Professor Keith, as always. And joining us from Orlando, Florida tonight is young Joshua Dawkins. What's up, my man?
So, how y'all doing?
We are good. We are good, sir. Excellent. So let me get this thing out of the way here. We do every show. It's just pay the bills real quick, but no disrespect to you.
Yeah.
But when it comes to natural relief, turn to Dr. Brown CBD. Dr. Brown CBD uses the latest scientific knowledge and experienced professionals to create top-of-the-line CBD products. Visit www.momandpopcbdshop.com for all your CBD and pain relief needs. Bills are paid. Josh Dawkins, welcome to Around the Turnbuckle.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get started, man. Once upon a time, Joshua Dawkins was a kid who loved wrestling. Tell me what got you into wrestling in the first place, and then how did that turn into you getting in the ring?
Yeah, so once upon a time and still now, I'm definitely a kid who still loves wrestling, but it's just something I watched all my life growing up. Basically, it's funny because nobody else in my family watches it. My brothers aren't a fan. My parents not a fan, but I was the only one in my family, and I just love it so much. I've watched it growing up, and I guess fast forward into now, me and my best friend talked about how much you love wrestling, never training, but just how much you loved it. He found a school, joined with him, and now here I am 2 years later, professional wrestling, man. Happens fast.
So where did you start training?
I've been training at Devon Dudley Academy. It's in Winter Park right now.
There you go.
And Devon Hughes, my trainer, man, and it's tough. We do conditioning, then we do wrestling. The conditioning, Rocky's type, no AC, all plate movement stuff is very difficult. But you have to gain their respect in the business. You can't just think you're gonna go in there and get in the ring off first day. It's like, no, you got to be down here first. So just building that humbleness definitely carries over, and I love it.
We keep hearing that more and more, right, Keith?
Absolutely. And I mean, that's really the way it used to be, and that's the way it kind of still should be, because part of doing all that cardio and stuff, and I don't mean doing it because there were people that would do it just to be like, oh, I'm just going to screw with people, I'm just going to hurt you or whatever. But you got to figure out who is serious, who's going to be worth your time to teach the craft to, and who is just a poser that says, you know what, I woke up this morning and I thought this might be a fun idea to do.
Yeah.
You don't want those guys there. You don't want to spend the time teaching them how to bump and how to do this and all of that. There's a reason this used to be very hard to get into, because you got to love it to be able to do it.
Yeah, I love it. Because one of our conditioning coaches, his name is Dan Carr. He was a co-creator of American Gladiators. So the conditioning is tough. Yeah, right. There's a lot of names at that place, so I'm just happy to be there. But the conditioning is tough. The wrestling's tough. But I just love it, and it's still fun, even with toughies, you know what I mean? So I just love it.
So when did you start? How old were you?
Started in 2018.
So 2 years ago. So you've been at it 2 years.
2 years, been at it. It's starting to pick up a little bit now, so, we'll see what happens.
Now, in the beginning, when you first started, it was things were happening, but then COVID kind of hit, right? And that kind of slowed things down a little bit, true?
Definitely slowed things down. Things were picking up. I had to show like the middle of March that got canceled because of COVID, and then everything after that obviously got canceled. But I do still feel like things are picking up back now. I think by March of this year, it'll be 100%, to be honest. That's in my opinion. But we'll see what happens with the vaccines and everything that's coming out. But yeah, when it did slow down, it was tough. You just had to do home gym workouts, which of course aren't the same. But just had to make it work, because even something like that will weed people out that's been doing it for so long. Just like, maybe this is a wake-up call. But other people like me just want me to work harder. I'm like, if this proves how easy it can end, time to go, when you have the opportunity.
I got a comment here from a guy you might know, JT Funk. I actually found Joshua Dawkins' story on some local news on Facebook and was inspired by it. Kudos to you, man.
Nice. Thank you. About that story, if I know what he's talking about, it's the story about me training at Devon Dudley Academy.
Right.
Yeah, he put me over, so I appreciate him for that. But and having the respect for somebody that's a Hall of Fame, what can I say? I'm very appreciative of that.
I got another one saying Kansas City wins. Go ahead, Keith.
Devon and Bubba are among my favorite tag teams, among one of the best tag teams I've ever seen, probably the best heel tag team I ever saw live. Because and this was the ECW days, so they were going for it. They were in the Allentown Ag Hall, which is a small, dingy little building up here in the Northeast, and Bubba breaks out with Allentown's full of whores. Got everybody, right on their side, and then Devon, chimed in with his part. Wait a minute, Bubba. You got to admit, Allentown's pretty hardcore for a bunch of no good, inbred, drunken pieces of shit. I mean, they're down in the crowd to fight them. People are getting ready to come over the rail. I mean, they went for it. And Devon came up the right way. Both those guys trained out of New York, came up the hard way. Many failed gimmicks before they got the opportunity with Paul and, to be the Dudleys and just took off from there. I mean, that's such a talented talent and a great mind to pick. And I mean, that's great for you too, because that gives you someone that's at where you want to go.
Exactly. And that's one thing he mentioned all the time. It's like you want to be trained by somebody that's been there, you know what I mean? Not somebody that's knows, because everybody knows. Everybody's like, oh, do this. No, we want somebody that's, especially because he's a producer. So it's like, if anybody knows, he knows. This is what they're looking for right now. Do this right now. Get better at this. Don't maybe, I'm guessing. No, he's telling you straight up, this is what they want to do. Do this better. Don't do this. And then it's funny you mentioned about the heel heat. Like the other day at practice, he talked about how it's so hard to get it down. He had a story about how he was, getting serious. People wanted to beat him up in backstage and stab him. So I was like, I couldn't imagine that now. That's what you imagine, what you think you want. But I was like, I don't know if I want to get that type of heat.
Yeah, well, from what I'm seeing so far, you're a face, right?
Yeah, big face.
Yeah. I got a question here. Who would you compare your style of wrestling to?
That's a really good question. I would say Booker T, only because he's my absolute favorite wrestler of all time. So a lot of stuff that I do is in somewhat, homage to him with the X kicks and stuff. Yeah. Maybe not the drop kick, but just a lot of the moves that I do is basically stuff I've seen Booker T do, just because I feel like with him and his presence in the ring and his facial emotions, everything was like perfect. It's like that's the biggest things I remember about him. So definitely Booker T.
It's funny you mentioned Booker T because we interviewed Stevie Ray a few weeks ago.
I did see that actually. Yeah, I thought
it was great. He was awesome. Awesome.
And what's so great too is he's so happy doing what he's doing with all the podcasting and everything. Like he said, I've
found good evening.
I found my dream and I'm kind of living my best life. And I mean that's what you want for everybody. Everybody to just find that passion. And you mentioned Booker, and I did kind of see some of that in your matches. Like I see some of that same energy and whatnot. And Booker is a great one to emulate because I remember watching Book. I'm going to show how old I am. I was watching Book when kind of just when Harlem Heat was starting out, just before they got with Sherry Martel.
Right.
And even then, you're right. Like Book was so complete with the facial expression, and he wasn't just doing the cool moves. He knew when to do the facials, when to sell, all of those little things that I sometimes unfortunately see wrestlers kind of forgetting today. That it seems like they're more about, hey, let me show you how I can go 100 miles an hour and let me show you all the moves I can do and get all my shit in. And it's like, guys, that's great. But I've said this before, and this is where I was kind of turned off a little bit sometimes by early Ring of Honor, not because anything was bad, but because it's too good. It's too much good stuff every match. And after a while, if you have like, say, 3 filet mignons, mignons not special anymore, right? It's kind of like, okay, it's what I had. It's what I have.
I got another question. What was the hardest thing for you to master in training within your first year?
The hardest thing to master.
What's
funny? It's going to be running the ropes. And you think it's easy.
Running the ropes.
Running the ropes is one of the hardest things that when you see people do it wrong, it's like that doesn't look great. And your back has to build calluses for those ropes. If it's a rope, if it's cable, but running the ropes correctly and making it look, like an athlete, that's probably the hardest thing.
Without busting your kidneys out.
Yeah. You see people fall through the ropes, their butt comes out, their head hits.
That would be me, man. That would be me.
You're not the only one, trust me.
I haven't talked to Keith about this yet, but we've been invited to do a show from inside a wrestling ring, and that's coming up next month. But when we do that, I'm going to ask the promoter if he could show me how to hit the ropes. But I know I'm going to.
How tall are you?
You want to be careful.
6 foot even.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Then you're good.
I'm good.
Your neck, you're good.
Yeah.
I remember Ted DiBiase and Nick Foley have said that same thing, that the ropes are very hard to hit, that it looks like it's simple.
You gonna do it? You gonna do it?
What?
You gonna hit the ropes?
I probably will get stupid in the moment and try to do it, because I know if you do it wrong, like I think
you'll get too hyped up to do it.
What was one match that you want us to?
Said he hit him wrong and he hit him with his kidneys.
What is one match that you want us to go watch and see? That what you're all about?
One of my matches?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a match against a guy named Barrett Brown. It's on my YouTube actually. Just Josh Dawkins versus Barrett Brown. That was probably my best matches I've ever had in my 2 years of wrestling.
I saw that when I typed in your name and wrestling. That's the first match that came up.
Really?
It must have been a more recent one, right?
Yeah, it's very recent. It happened in I think like 2 or 3 months ago. I can't remember exactly, but he's so good at what he does. It felt amazing match. Had a good time. That's definitely one you want to see. Barrett Brown versus Josh Dawkins.
There you go, Anthony. Yeah, and so you start training, you start wrestling. Now you're working. You're just. I never asked this, Keith. I don't think I've ever asked this question because you've only been doing it for 2 years now. How's your promos?
Yeah, I don't think you have asked anybody about that.
That is the thing in my head now that I'm trying to work on, because moves, athletic. I feel like I'm at a point where that's okay, but the promos and the character building, that's something I've been trying to hone in on this next year of my wrestling. Basically, like I'm not just Josh Dawkins, but what exactly is Josh Dawkins? What's the goal of the character? What's where I'm taking it? So that's what I'm working on.
You're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, still trying to figure it out, basically. I have an idea, but nothing set in stone at all.
Now, are you traveling much, or are you kind of just staying close to home base, staying close to the school? I mean, because I'm
staying in Orlando or area. I've been in some places like maybe 2 or 3 hours away. The only place that match against Barrett Brown is in Texas. That's the furthest I ever went. That's only happened once in my career. So we'll see what happens.
And I mean, with the COVID, it's tougher. I know that.
Not too much going on at all.
But that's definitely something, I've always heard too. Get yourself in front of different audiences, especially as you're trying to figure out who, Joshua Dawkins, the wrestler, is. Yeah. That's what to do, because the audience will tell you very quickly if they believe in what you're doing, or if they're like, no, I can tell you're not.
Exactly. That's so true. Because even it's so many different shows I've been to where people are like, Josh, a lot of the matches, I don't know, but with yours, you just look more athletic. It looked more real. I'm like, well, I can appreciate that. That's basically what I want to do, So just hearing that, it helps me, get an idea of maybe I'm on the right track, but now it can get better, never complacent in what I'm doing ever.
Yeah, and that sounds a lot like your buddy JT Funk. When we first met him, he said the same exact thing. He had been doing it for 3 years when we met him, and he said he still was humble. He still felt like he can only he has a lot more to learn.
Yeah,
and keep that mindset, whether you're 2 years in or whether you're 12 years in, that you could always keep learning.
100%. 100%.
So, like when you do your promos, and when they have you do them, where does that come from for you? Like do you follow like a Stone Cold Steve Austin thing where you're like, it's you, but it's with the volume turned way up? Or it's somebody that's completely opposite of Joshua Dawkins?
Yeah. Well, I know one thing I always say is the best characters are it's like when it's like extension of yourself.
Yeah.
But it's like, what is the extension of myself sometimes? I don't know. So it's like I've always thought maybe I gotta go, far left field.
Yeah.
And maybe be the most, narcissistic, egotistical dude ever. I'm like, that's not me.
Right.
But I feel like if I could play it well, but I'm still trying to figure it out. If it's gonna be Josh Dawkins, the nice dude, but I mean, it's a lot of nice dudes in wrestling. And Josh Dawkins, the athletic dude, where it's like it's a lot of athletic dudes in wrestling. It's like, who am I besides that? You know what I mean? So I'm trying to figure that out.
I'll tell you one thing that what we've seen, Keith, right, is that like guys who are trying to find their way like that, a lot of times they got to go outside of their comfort zone, right, Keith?
Right.
To find that guy that they've been meant to be this whole time. It was always in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Am I wrong, Keith?
No, you're right. And I mean, you're right too, Josh, that if you get too far away from who you are at your core, it's not going to be real. And that's what you want to do. I've always heard the phrase, and it's a cliche, but it's the best way to go, of I can't make them believe this is real, but I can make them believe I'm real. And that's what you want. You want to, especially as a babyface, because a babyface, it's a lot harder road than a heel. Everybody says, and I mean, they're right. Because, if you're a heel, you get more freedom. You get to cheat. You get to flip people off. If somebody in the audience is heckling you and you're, just tired of it, you get to, break out some witty quip on them. One of my favorites is I heard somebody was giving Tracy Smothers shit at a show, and Tracy Smothers yelled at him, "Hey, I don't come to Burger King and bother you at work." And when you're a heel, you can do that because you're trying to get heat. When you're a baby face and some guy is doing that you don't get to bust back at him. You've got to try to turn that guy into your enemy and your fan.
Yeah, and that's always the the middle ground of trying to do nice, amazing things, but not only be about the nice, amazing moves. Because some people do the same moves. It's like, so that's what you talk about with the promo work. Making yourself stand out somehow in some way.
Marcus Johnson, I hear that phrase all the time from my trainer. I don't know which phrase he meant, but I don't know if he was talking about.
I think it might have been the I can't make you think this is real.
Cowboy.
Harry, Josh is a good man. Cowboy Nation, absolutely.
Of course, he comes in and responds to that.
Well, yeah, he sees the cowboy flag back there.
For the Cowboys flag. I had to.
Great. Absolutely. So, somebody who's been doing this for 2 years, it's hard to say, like, what was your best match? You just said that your best match was your most recent one.
Mm-hmm.
And that a lot of times is the answer with guys that have been only doing it as little time as you have. It's because you're only as good as your last match kind of mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we normally do a segment on this show. I usually save it for the halftime of this, but we'll throw it out there now just because it might be a really good topic. And if anybody's watching, I want you guys to answer this. If anybody might have a guy in mind, because I have a guy in mind, and I'm sure Keith might have a guy in mind. But if you could wrestle anybody alive or dead from past, present, or future, who would that be and why? And then we'll give you our answer.
All right. I can go ahead and give him an answer.
Go ahead.
We already know it's Booker T, of course. Because I feel like when it comes to the athleticism in the breaks in between just moves, where it comes to facial character stuff in the moments, again, he's just my favorite when it comes to that. Like
Booker in his prime, right?
Huh?
Booker, you would want Booker in his prime.
I want King Booker. King Booker, like WWE Booker. I don't want WCW. I want King Booker.
You want it.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, JT.
Booker
T. There it is.
Yeah, Booker T.
You got to give it to him, though. I mean, Booker T is the only guy that has made that King gimmick work.
Yes.
Nobody else has ever been able to make that half as good or work half as well as Booker did. Even as great as Harley Race was, Harley Race had said it in his book and would say it all over the place. Like, I wouldn't know King. That's what they told me to do, so I did it.
All right, so I got a name for you, Joshua Dawkins. Ricochet.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a once in a lifetime type of experience.
Just watching what you do, it's not as crazy and flashy as him, but I think you guys would complement each other and you guys would be able to work off of each other in a way that would make it very entertaining.
I agree. Because then some of the matches I watched with him in NXT, But a lot of guys who are very similar to my style of wrestling, it's definitely phenomenal matches. 20, 25-minute matches, all been
Billy
great.
Kidman, Marcus Johnson.
Billy Kidman.
That's a good one.
Billy Kidman, yeah. That's a good one, actually.
All right, Keith, you got anybody?
I would say Sean Waltman would be great. And not just because of how you guys would match up, but I mean, that's also somebody that a wealth of experience, and the only way to get better is to wrestle guys like that.
And it's funny you say him because X-Pac is the only other person that does that like it's like a wheel kick, and I kind of got from him too. So it's funny you said him because some people.
Harry said Kenny Omega.
Oh yeah, of course.
That to get me to go nuts.
He's just picking an AEW guy. So Josh, do you pay attention to the current product?
Oh yeah, you have to, because a lot of people who say they don't, and I just don't understand how. Because how can you come up in the business and not see what other people are doing? So I pay attention to everything. I watch everything
as much as you do.
For you,
everything.
What do you watch more? I mean, if you mind me asking, do you watch more AEW, more NXT?
Currently, more AEW.
More AEW.
Currently, yep.
Because a lot of guys that are just getting out and maybe 2, 3 years, 4 years in, watch a lot of that AEW dark because they might see somebody that they know that, or maybe that they've come across or met, while they're training.
Yeah.
So they get excited for that person, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited because we got a guy by the name of Chico Adams who had a match on Dynamite a couple weeks ago against Jake Hager.
I love Chico. I know Chico personally.
There you go. So I mean, I'm excited about that.
Even people like it's a guy by the name of Earl Dominguez. I train with him, so he does dark matches. Or even Casey Lennox, she does dark matches. She trains at Devon Dudley as well.
There you go.
So it's Florida, a lot of us gonna be up there because it's in Jacksonville. So it's very cool.
In your case, the end all be all isn't the WWE. It's just you have a passion for this and you want to do this for a living.
Absolutely. The end all be all is to be doing it for a living. Wherever that may be, AEW, Impact, literally Japan, very open to anything. Everything's life experience. I would love to do all of it. It doesn't matter where it is for me personally.
I think that's the right attitude to have. I mean, I know a lot of guys, they have their childhood dream and, you go where the money's the best. But I also think, too, you got to look at where you're going to be happy creatively and where you're going to be able to do your style. And, it seems like in certain companies that will remain nameless, a lot of guys go up there because they think it's their dream. And they're like, I wanted to do that since I was a kid. And then they get up there and they're like, man, I don't like how they tell me how to do everything.
We all know who you're talking about. When you say that. You do realize that, right?
I was trying to be political, pal.
Okay. I love how you added a pal in there.
Yeah. Just in case anybody didn't know who I was talking about.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but even sometimes, people will say how they don't want to be somewhere, and that might be 2 or 3 years in wrestling. It's like, how could you say you don't wrestle for a company when you're not even 3 years in wrestling? I don't know. Everybody's mindset is different.
Do you have anything coming up soon? Any bookings coming up soon?
I have a booking coming up the 22nd, actually, in Melbourne, Florida. It's for Riot Pro Wrestling. I believe it's a tag match. I don't know exactly who it's against yet, but yeah, I got one coming up 22nd and some in the February. I can't remember the exact dates, but yeah, it's starting to pick up a little bit, so I'm excited.
That's so glad. I'm so glad to hear that because a lot of guys are kind of down right now. They're not being booked at all. They're kind of starting to second guess, what they want to do here, but it's so good that they're starting to open things up in different parts of the country, and that they just got to find where they can get booked, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the wrestling. People, they start to lose motivation after things don't go well. Even I've seen people train for a few months and be like, I thought I'd get signed in a year. It's like, who got signed in a year?
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody ever. Even 5 years, people don't get signed. That's very rare. So it's like you can't get upset when things happen fast. If they happen fast, they'll end fast. So it's like for me, I'll play the slow game.
Yeah, because you don't want to be out there when you're not ready. Because you only get one chance to make a first impression.
Exactly. First impression is everything.
I've said that a few times with some of the people I'll see on AEW or elsewhere. I'm like, I get you want to be on national television and all, but man, you got to know if you're up to national television or not. And some of these people, unfortunately, they're not, and I worry about man, is that going to be people's impression of them? And the next time when they are ready and they do get up there, are people still going to have that taste in their mouth from earlier and go, man, I'm not going to give this guy a chance. I already saw it and I didn't like it.
Yeah. When people see, wrestling that isn't very great, if there's somebody that's me that's training or somebody that's never trained, they know it's like, that match didn't look, right. And so it's like you definitely want to have a very good first impression because it's everything.
Yeah, man, you couldn't say it better. If you haven't watched that, you said you checked out that Stevie Ray interview, but if you haven't watched it in its entirety, he did mention at that point when we were trying to when we have people on, especially veterans like that, or anybody who's been in the business for a while, we try to pick their brains for you guys, right? Because this show has become about supporting our indie wrestlers. If we can be any possible help to you guys at all to make your dreams come true, that's what we're all about, because this show started with us just sitting around talking wrestling, and what it's become, I love, which is a place for you guys to come on here, tell your story, and just in case nobody knows who you are, now they know who you are, or maybe some people might know who you are, and if we kick a door down, that's great. But Stevie Ray said, don't give up. Like you said just a little bit ago, where you said, who gets signed in a year? Nobody gets signed in a year. Don't give up. Just stick with it. Just keep doing your thing. Keep getting better.
Exactly.
And the better you get, all of a sudden you're going to get noticed, and things things happen. Of course, it happens quicker for some guys than others.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's all about your dedication. It's all about, a lot of things.
Like people talk about having small goals and having small wins. Like my match with Barry Brown is a small win. So, okay, after that match, I felt great. Every match it has this, that, and the other. Like that match, that's the first time I ever feeling 100%. Like that was a good match. So that was a small win. So, each process, each step was a small win to get to, the level that we're of course trying to get to.
I would encourage everybody to follow this guy on all his, what are all your handles on Instagram and all that kind of stuff? It's all
everything. Joshua J Dawkins.
Facebook, Joshua J Dawkins on Facebook, Joshua J Dawkins on Instagram,
Joshua J Dawkins on Twitter.
Joshua J Dawkins on Twitter. If you need to get a hold of him,
any potential stalkers.
I've been flashing this Gmail. This is his email right here, JoshuaJordanDawkins@gmail.com. Anybody wants to book him, get a hold of him. But it sounds like he's got things going on in Florida. And so realistically, how long do you think till you make that, let's send stuff to WWE or NXT and maybe show up at the PC Center or something like that?
I feel like that's always like the biggest dilemma of when do you think you're ready, because you never know, and that's the beauty of having somebody that's a producer for WWE, because he tells you when he thinks you're ready, when he's like, all right, you're doing a lot of things great, but let's be honest, this needs to get better. It's like, that's what you want to hear. I don't want you to tell me, oh, everything you're doing is perfect. It's like, no, obviously not. RB signed. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, please. And I want constructive criticism. And he does that in a nice way, actually, believe it or not. But he does that, and he helps us get better. And so I feel like for me, the exact timing is, I have no idea. Maybe 2, 3 years, I don't know when I feel like maybe I'll get over that cliff, but maybe 2, 3 years. I don't know.
Oh, man, you keep in contact with us, though, because we're going to keep track of you. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
So does Devon still work for WWE?
Yeah, he does. He definitely does, because we have training Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He comes Tuesday, Thursday nights. He's there every week, Tuesday, Thursday nights. When he's not there, he's at Monday, Friday with WWE.
Monday, Friday is at Raw or SmackDown.
Because the school's right next to Full Sail, which is where they not Full Sail, the M Arena, which is where they were doing the stuff. So 30 minutes down the road, he'll be at the school. So, and he's there, which is a lot of people put their name on school, they're not there. He's like there in your face, talking to you, giving critique, which is awesome. It's like he's a Hall of Famer, and he's really trying to help us get to where we're trying to get. And you can't say that about a lot of different schools. So Devon Dudley Academy, Winter Park, Florida, that's where you want to be if you're in the area. Seriously,
that's awesome. That's good stuff. Keith,
like you said, you want to get where it's somebody that knows what they're doing. It's been at that level.
Like I said, pick brains, man. Like if guys come in, and I hear this a lot. Guys come in that maybe you're like afraid to approach, or maybe it's a veteran. You're like, oh my God, so and so's here. some guys will be afraid to just ask them questions. Ask questions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever's in your head, just ask questions. It makes them think, makes them know, not think, that you want to learn whatever you could possibly learn to that level you want to be at.
Yeah, because you get a little nugget from everybody that's been in the business. It's like one person says, do this better. They said, do this better. You put it together, and it's like, okay, now it's something that is really good. You know, you get a little nugget from each match, each person. And that's the thing, too, like you said, people get scared talking to veterans. It's like, you really can't be, because that's the old school way of learning, is asking a veteran, you know, how was that match? Or, and be honest, please. Like, if it was bad, tell me it's bad. How was that, you know, kick or punch out there? You know, just let me know, please. And I've never had anyone be negative with me. They've always been receptive every time I ask somebody that was a veteran. So
I also love your fundamentals too. When I watch your matches, I love your fundamentals. Okay,
Yeah.
You don't just try to wow us in the first 5 minutes with everything you've got. You know what I mean? Sometimes you'll slow it down. Sometimes you'll just a regular headlock or whatever, and you'll go in whatever. But that drop kick is money. We talked pre-show about. I said I threw at you. Maybe you should have a missile drop kick in your arsenal as a finisher. Do you have a finisher? Have you been working on one?
So the one I've done is a blockbuster where I just run at them and literally jump over their head. But I've lately not want to do it anymore because it's hurt my back. So I might do a missile drop kick because I've been doing that move. The other day I did it and I fell on my shoulder as well with the blockbuster. So I was like, maybe I should stop doing it, because if I'm doing it in training, I'll do it in the match. So I like the missile drop kick idea. A lot of people say I should do drop kick in general as a finish because, you know, like the Rockers or something. But I'm like, you know, 2021, you probably can't just do that. But
right,
something like a missile drop kick would be really nice. So maybe that could be a new finisher.
Time there used to be a drop kick, right, Keith, as a finisher.
Way back, way before time. A lot of stuff that's transition spots now. It used to be finishers back in the day.
DDT.
And people get mad today, you know, the old timers that'll sit there and go, "Oh, I remember when the DDT would finish somebody," or blah, blah. And what they're missing is, but the reason that stuff with the finish is it's safe. You can do it repeatedly. You don't hurt yourself. You don't hurt the other guy. And it also means that the audience buys into it without you having to do anything too over the top, because that's one of the problems when you get into, especially with the hardcore promotions. And look, I like hardcore wrestling when it's done safe. We all like garbage matches every so often. But the problem with it as the only thing you do or the way you do it is kind of like guys that are going to blow through finishes as transition spots or anything like that.
Yes, it is.
You just noticed that?
Half an hour.
My God.
He's been hiding it.
But yes, I agree with what you're saying about people doing things a little bit too fast. Because even, you know, my young years of wrestling, I can see it's like when it's done so fast, boom, 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 boom. It's like, I can't breathe. You know, commentary, what can they say? It's like, everything's happening so fast. That's one thing I'm working on too, is slowing down, because some things I do is too fast. And it's like, yeah, you're going to look athletic, but you gotta give people time to say who you are, you know, where you're from, like what your hope, putting a lock in, you know what I'm saying? So
God hope his wrestling is better than his taste in teams.
Oh man, Anthony, I thought I liked you, but I don't know anymore.
Yeah, Anthony is a Giants fan, a diehard Giants fan.
Jeez. No, I don't like Anthony.
Right.
I won't forget that name.
Anyway,
but you know, that, and you're right. That's the point. Is if you're going 100 miles an hour, you're not giving the announcers time to tell people your story, and you're also creating expectations for yourself that are too high. I always go back to the old Looney Tunes cartoon where Porky Pig is the town agent, and I know I've told the story like 5 times now, so the audience has started hearing it. But Joshua hasn't heard it yet, people. You know, so that wolf guy that keeps barging in after every act, going like, "I have the greatest act ever. I have the greatest thing. You have to see it." And finally, by the end of the cartoon, Porky's like, "Fine, just do it and get it over with." And he mixes up all these chemicals, and he's diving off the diving board, and he drinks the stuff down, and the lights are going crazy, and he blows himself up. And Porky Pig's like, "Wow, you're right. That is the greatest thing I've ever seen. That is the greatest trick. When can I sign you?" And he comes back in, and he's transparent for cartoon dead. And he's like, "Well, there's only one little thing wrong with it. I can only do it once."
Yeah.
And it's sort of the same problem if you're not stopping
so
to smell the roses and you're not using the correct tempo in the match. Again, like I said earlier, it's filet mignon, sure, but it's so much of a good thing and so many other people are doing it, you don't stand out. And by the end of the show, you're just one of another good match that I saw.
Yeah.
Marcus says there's no time for people to react when you go that fast.
Yeah, and like I told people, I don't do suicide dives. It's like, yo, but you're athletic, you can jump. It's like, no, I don't do suicide dives. There's no point. It's like, who?
You would get the other people.
I'm sorry, but for me, it's like this. I mean, not saying they shouldn't have to do it, but why would I do it if I see 3 or 4 matches before me and 4 matches after? I'm not doing suicide dives.
They're all doing it.
Yeah,
They're all doing it because Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins and this one and that one and Roman Reigns made it like you if you don't do that, you're nothing.
not a good match. It's like I've never done. I mean, I've done maybe one over the rope, and it's like, but through the ropes and stuff like that, like I don't. That's too dangerous to me. I'm like, I don't see myself doing that. I mean, I say it now, but we'll see what happens down the road. But
now you protect.
Ironically, that may make you be one of the guys that stands out because everybody else has almost incorporated it into like, oh, you have to do it at some point. There has to be at least one. But yeah, that becomes a problem. You know, if everybody does it, nobody does it.
And the biggest veteran lesson in wrestling that I can remember learning is just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like just because I might be able to do like a backflip into a super kick. Like what's the point of me doing it? I might do a backflip 3-6 off top rope, but it's like, why? So exactly. That's the biggest thing I've learned too.
Because what you do now is working, and you're going to get better. The more you do it, the more you own your craft, you're going to get better. Yeah. What you need to develop, and you've already admitted this, is that persona.
Yeah. Because like the old school way, people say it's gone and broken. It's like it's really not, because even with so much of flippy wrestling, the people that have characters are still breaking out. People that have characters are still the best people that we remember. So it's not like wrestling is just complete change. It's like, no, this is what's doing it, but the characters are still, Sting comes back. I'm talking about Sting. He has wrestled how long,
Right.
So it's like, let's be honest. People say it's changed. Like, no, it's not.
Listen,
it's still everything.
Listen, that leads me to a question I've been thinking about with being how young you are. I often wonder that your generation, we have the WWE Network, which you probably have.
Yep.
Do you go back and check out old school stuff?
I watch everything.
And how far back do you go? I mean, do you are we talking Attitude Era,
80s, 70s, 80s, like Starcade, Dusty Rhodes, Harley Race, like you were saying.
Really?
One of my favorites, Mr. Wonderful. I can't remember his name.
Paul Orndorff.
I love Paul Orndorff.
Nice.
Yeah, I watch it all. I love Paul Orndorff.
Macho Man, and you watch
Macho Man, of course. Ricky Steamboat, talking about arm drag, everything about old wrestling I love, and even mixing into new wrestling. It's like, you can find the happy medium, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. These guys you still talk about today, and they didn't do anything crazy. Macho Man did an X-hand off top rope.
That's it.
So that's it.
It was just by how he did it.
Yeah, it just had so much build up to it where he did the whole arm extension. It's like, people don't do stuff like that. It's like, that's something I'm trying to,
it's almost slow motion, right? He brings
slow motion, get everybody coming up with him.
Like he's going to murder you when he comes up.
Yes. Because today I actually watched Ric Flair versus Macho Man, the WrestleMania 8 match.
Nice.
Good one.
It lost to a roll up. I'm like, if people saw roll up in today's wrestling, they'll be mad.
Right.
WrestleMania match and a roll up. I was like, I love that. That's not today's wrestling.
And he hooked the tights because that made him say that. Well, yes, he won and he won the title, but it didn't hurt Ric Flair very much because he could go back in the back and do that once in a lifetime promo where they were complaining about hooking the tights.
Yeah. So I definitely watch all wrestling. Even like my growing up wrestling was like when Drew McIntyre first started. That was my growing up wrestling. And my biggest memory of wrestling is when the Miz won championship versus Randy Orton, because I was at that show that Monday Night Raw. So that's probably my growing up wrestling.
Yeah.
2010, 2011.
Right. Yeah. So when you watch those old matches, pay close attention to those promos, right? I mean, I know some of them are out there, and I'm not talking about the Ultimate Warrior. I'm talking about
the Warrior's promos didn't make sense. How dare you?
Well,
he was perfectly clear about the UFOs and the mothership and the. I just love when Hulk Hogan makes fun of Warrior promos, because I just always think back to like WrestleMania 4 when he was talking about slamming Andre, and the building would open up, and the Atlantic Ocean was going to flood in. I'm like, look, you can't talk to anybody about having promos that are out there, brother. You
His
just can't.
his promo before when Warrior wrestled Hogan at WrestleMania 6. Go back on the network. Go to that promo where they interview him right before the match. Right?
It's like they're trying to out crazy each other.
Right. So he talks about Hogan's was way out there too, but the Warrior talks about going into a plane with filled of Hulkamaniacs, tearing the cockpit door open, getting rid of the pilots who've already made the sacrifice, whatever that means, steering the plane into a nosedive, Hulk Hogan. I don't know what the hell he's talking.
Where did he come up with this stuff?
Right, I have no idea. I'm just saying.
We're left field, but the energy he brought.
Riveting, though. It's insane, but it's riveting. You're like,
yes,
none of this makes sense, but I want more.
Definitely watch the Bushwhacker promos. You'll learn something. No, you will not, Anthony. Watch Ric Flair, okay? Yeah. Watch that's a promo, all right? Watch Ric Flair. Watch The Rock. Watch Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah. Watch the Macho Man, okay? Watch those guys.
People are great at it, phenomenal at it. The people that everybody should learn from.
I refuse.
Even my coach, Devon Dudley, he cut some great promos.
Oh, him and Bubba always.
Yeah.
Him and Bubba always. They own
underrated as a promo because of how much Bubba was such a promo. Yeah. Everybody forgets like Bubba used to be, because I've watched every ECW television episode, and when Devon came in, Devon was just destroying everybody verbally, and Bubba was still stuttering, and then once they put them together and they turned him, then you couldn't shut Bubba up, and he wound up kind of overshadowing Devon a lot of the time. But that also speaks to how well Devon is and how giving he was, that he was like, okay, I'll let Mark go and, take control of this, and I'll just get my moments in here when it makes sense. And, that's something I think to pay attention to too, is know when to have the spotlight and know when to be like, all right, this guy can have the spotlight now. And then when I see my moment, I'm going to make the most out of it.
Booker T and Harlem Heat's promos, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen a bunch of them.
All the time. When I tell you I watch Booker T, I might watch him too much, but yeah, I've definitely seen it all. I did seen it all. Because even today I watched it. I'm always watching wrestling, but today I watched the WCW match, him versus Eddie Guerrero in '98. Wow. And I'm like, it was just great. It was a good match. I mean, a TV match, but it's still good.
That's the thing. Those guys back then, they had no, their matches on TV, on Raw or SmackDown, were just as good as the Raws on the matches on the pay-per-view. All right. Nowadays it's different. They don't give you too much. They save it for the pay-per-view, and good, bad, or indifferent. But back then it was a different time. So much good wrestling because you had so much of it, right? It was you had a match on Raw, a match on SmackDown, then you had the pay-per-view. You had to build up to that match.
Every time I watch, Raw from like 2002 with The Rock and Stone Cold, it's like Kurt Angle. It's like how do you get the energy back in today's wrestling? It's like is it even possible? I don't know. I don't know.
And that's why I'm hoping like guys like yourself and your generation go back and watch that kind of stuff. Yeah. Instead of just following the guys that you grew up watching, because you grew up watching like guys of today. You grew up watching John Cena and Randy Orton versus going back and watching some of those guys from WCW, some of those guys from ECW, some of those guys from WWE, WWF.
Yeah. You need to everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, go back even further than that. There's UWF on there. There's Old Crockett on there. There's
AWA.
So much. AWA.
$1 Million Man was entertaining. Ted DiBiase, you know that guy?
Yeah, definitely know Ted DiBiase.
Yeah, the $1 Million Man.
That's the one thing too. Like people in wrestling don't know, the old people have done, the old school people, people before me. But it's just like with any job interview, you have to know, to know these names, know what they did, know did they win anything, because the people are gonna ask you. And it's like you don't be embarrassed and not. What if I say I don't know $1 Million Man? It's like, do I watch wrestling? Yeah, I know who $1 Million Man is. You know what I'm saying?
Student of the game, right, Keith? He's a student of the game.
Absolutely, that's what you should be, because I've heard horror stories from different guys. Like the Revival talked about that they got Ricky Morton down there, or they'll get the Rock and Roll Express into the PNC, and then people won't talk to them and won't pick their brain. And that's just insane because it's like, look, per capita, and I know everybody gets hung up on, oh, well, WWE has made more money than, any other company in the history of ever. Yeah, okay, one single company. But guys like the Rock and Roll have made more money themselves going to different territories than just about anybody currently, except for the tippity top guys are ever going to say. And just because, oh yeah, well, it was different then. It was, but the stuff that would work then, you modify it because obviously you can't do or say everything you did then, In some ways, we become a little more enlightened sometimes than some of the stuff they used to get away with, but the tricks still work. The underlying tricks
100%.
are still there, and it still works.
100%. I agree. Like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They made money, so they did something right. Take something from it. That's what they say. You want to take pieces from people that wrestle, but not even just that. Like stuff from movies and TV shows. Like that's how you can help get, characters and stuff to bring to wrestling. So, and that was one thing Devon talked about too, about how he got his character from a movie character and stuff like that. That helped him, bring his energy and just add it to what he already was. So that was a good advice from him too.
So I got two more questions.
Yeah.
My first one is, what is your favorite match of all time before the year 2000?
Is WrestleMania Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man. That's my all-time favorite match. I watched that match a million times.
I love that answer.
All-time favorite match.
Macho Man Randy Savage is my favorite wrestler of all time.
Oh yeah. Ricky Steamboat's arm drags are just, that's
legendary.
Amazing. It's literally, nobody does it like that. It's amazing.
Legendary.
That's my favorite.
It's so perfect.
Keith, I hope to have him on the show someday. Ricky
I would mark out so hard for Ricky.
Well, I know you would, but I know a guy who knows a guy who might be able to get us Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You gotta get him. I didn't want to mention that to you without being solid. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We got some big guests coming up in February and March, but Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is not one of them. Joshua J. Dawkins, my last question to you is: do you have any questions for us?
Any questions for you guys? All right. Who's your most all-time favorite person that you interviewed so far?
Wow.
That is
wait.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
I know. I got. Wait, Keith, you want to take that one? Because it might be two different answers.
Yeah, it's really hard because, and we're friends with some of these people now too. So, if you don't say something.
You don't want to disrespect anybody.
You're going to get pissed. I mean, I love everybody. I love sitting down and talking wrestling with everybody that we have on. I really loved having Rudy Boy Gonzalez on, probably for the same reason you would love talking to him, Josh, is there's somebody that's done it. He's trained, he's promoted, he's wrestled, he has a million stories. You just get to sit there and just listen to him is such a privilege.
I'm going to give you two different answers here. One is going to be Stevie Ray because it's hard to top that.
Yes.
All right. It was a privilege to talk to Stevie Ray, and he was so cool. And it was just like, it was like talking to somebody I've known for years. He made me feel at ease. I don't know about Keith, but he made me feel at ease. Like I wasn't like marking out. Oh my God, I'm talking to Stevie Ray right now.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was really cool. He was awesome. But as far as indie guys goes, I don't like to pick a favorite because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But I know that he's watching, so I'm going to say JT Funk. Because my man is the man that he's the gift that keeps on getting. He just keeps sending us guests. Like, all I got to do is say, hey man, I'm at a guest or I'm getting close to it. And he sends me 6 or 8 people. It's insane.
Yeah, you got
me. Yeah, JT Funk, I love you. I love you. So if I say anybody else besides him or Prince Shango, because he gets sensitive, but JT Funk, so Stevie Ray and JT Funk, there you go.
And you already said your favorite wrestler was Macho Man. So, Keith, who's your favorite wrestler of all time?
Ooh, there you
Oh,
go.
it's the Undertaker. It's the Undertaker, hands down.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a great one.
My brother watched
Oh.
wrestling before I did, and that was like the first thing I saw. I'd seen Andre, respected Andre, I'd seen Warrior, but once I saw Taker and Paul Bearer, I'm like, yeah, that I want to watch more of that.
Yes, in
That's
my
what-
opinion, people like the Undertaker's like the crew that everybody would want to dream of. To wrestle for decades. Because even like
30
your
years.
guys' childhood, in my childhood, he was wrestling.
Yeah.
It's like that's I was born in '98, so that's the crew people everybody would love to have.
I got one last question from Marcus. Name another indie wrestler that you haven't worked with that you would like to.
I'd like to work with. What do you think? I guess I have to go with my friend Ariel Dominguez because even though I trained him, I never actually had a match with him personally, so I love to wrestle him.
There you go.
Me and him have a similar style of having an amateur wrestling background, so I feel like that match could be interesting.
You know, it'd be a good match, Keith. Joshua J Dawkins versus JT Funk.
JT Funk.
We'll probably see
Book it.
someday.
Well, I got to send him down to Florida because he was just down there a couple weeks ago.
Who wants to wrestle me?
JT Funk. Okay.
JT Funk.
Come on.
All right. Any other questions there, bud?
Let me think. Have you guys ever trained wrestling or just been fans?
We've just been fans.
We've just been fans. I've been a fan of wrestling for over 40 years. The first time I went to wrestling, I was 5. And my stepfather took me to Allentown, Pennsylvania, to the Agricultural Hall. And the main event was Andre the Giant teaming up with Hulk Hogan against Big John Studd and Andre the Giant. I mean, Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy.
King Kong Bundy.
That was the main event. But they taped a bunch of superstars of wrestling and things like that was going on and stuff like that. But I got to see Andre live, which is saying something. Like I can say I saw Andre live, I saw Hogan, I saw Cena, I saw The Undertaker, I saw all these legends live. Shawn Michaels. I went to countless. I've been to 3 WrestleManias.
Wow.
Keith tells the same. I'll let Keith tell his story, but how he got into wrestling in the first place.
Well, I kind of did that.
But no, I mean that moment, that what you were watching when you got into wrestling.
Yeah, it's funny we make fun of Warrior. It was when Warrior was on the funeral parlor and Taker came out of the casket and beat him up and locked him up in that, special Ultimate Warrior size casket. I'm like, yeah.
How massive was like Andre the Giant in person? Do you remember?
I barely remember it, but at age 5, think about that. How tall was that at age 5? And I'm looking up at a guy who's 7 foot plus. I mean, he looked like he went on forever. He looked like his head was going to hit the ceiling to me. I remember, but I could not believe how big I couldn't believe how big Bundy was either. I mean, Bundy.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Bundy too.
I mean, wide. I mean, he was huge. Big John was big. Hogan looked like the smallest guy in the ring when all 4 of them were in the ring. You know what I mean? And you know how
I
big
guess it will be now because didn't he lose like 4 inches of height or something?
Yeah. So, like I said, Andre was truly. If you haven't seen anything that Andre ever did, you should go back and look at that too, because he was just something else. He was the phenom. He was the big show before there was Hogan, before there was Undertaker, before there was all these guys. It was Andre the Giant. But yeah, man, we're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah.
You got any parting gifts for my man Joshua J Dawkins?
You mentioned King Kong Bundy, and every time anybody mentions King Kong Bundy now, I think of Jim Cornette's Ernie Ladd impression, because apparently he didn't like Bundy, so he would say every time he saw Bundy, "Bundy, you're stealing money again, Bundy. You're so dumb. Every time you get out there, Bundy, you're stealing a paycheck."
Well, I want to thank you for coming on, man. Thanks for telling your story. We wish you the best of luck. I hope you keep in contact with us. And man, we see you again down the road, man. Things start happening for you. You want to come back on and you want to promote anything, you let me know.
Sure.
Anything that you want me to share, I'll share. Anything that you got going on, I'll share it too. I mean, you know, for your events, most of it's down in the Florida area, so it's only going to affect them. But if you got anything else going on, any merchandise or anything else you start selling or anything like that, if you want to book Joshua, you want to get in touch with him, go to Joshua, send an email to joshuajordandawkins@gmail.com, and you can find him on Instagram, you can find him on Twitter, and you can find him on Facebook. Joshua Dawkins.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. I love what you guys are doing. Your podcast is great, very professional. You guys know what you're doing, and I can tell you guys are fans, and it's easy to talk to you guys. So thank you for having me.
I have words for him, Anthony.
I'm ignoring that. I'm ignoring that from Anthony Joseph. I'm ignoring that. My team's going to playoffs next year.
Yeah, he's a jerk. All right. Josh, man, have a good night, and thank you so much. Enjoy the Buccaneers versus Saints I am.
Yes.
We're going to get out of here. We're going to watch football, all right, my man? Thanks for joining
us. Have a good night.
We'll see all you guys next time on Around the Turnbuckle.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you gonna do, brother? Oh, yeah! Woo! What? If you smell what the rock...
You got the wrong guy. I'm the dude.